I think to most people listening that, I mean, maybe special educational needs schools should be considered in a rather different category. Also, private special educational needs schools should be considered in a different category from others because, I mean, listening to what she was saying there, it's kind of difficult to find an argument against her, isn't it?
Well, I suppose, Michelle's school is clearly doing a lot of good in some ways for the children it serves. But it is important to look at the big picture because I am generally supportive of this idea of putting VAT on private schools because the big picture is that overall education systems across the world that have and within the kind of UK actually that have more children from wealthier backgrounds in the state system do better and the children do better overall. So if you compare a place like Bristol with Sheffield, Bristol has a lot of private schools and overall the educational achievement of the children there is much lower than it is in Sheffield where the vast majority of children, most of the children go to state schools. That's because you've got a genuine social mix. And the problem with, having the private system as we've got it at the moment, it creates this social segregation, which isn't good for our children. They need to with social backgrounds of all types of backgrounds. And it also brings within, if you have children from wealthier backgrounds going into the state system, it does improve the state system. 9 out of 10 children go to state schools at the moment. And if we had, even more, I think we would have a less segregated society and children would be doing a lot better overall.
But isn't that for the parents to decide rather than from a civil servant or politician in Whitehall to say, I mean, I don't doubt the research that you're quoting there about the sort of need for a mix of kids at all sorts of different schools. But in the end, shouldn't it be parents who decide? And if they can afford to send their children to a private school now and choose to do so, is it really right to impose financial penalties on them, which is effectively what's happening here?
Well, I think it's really interesting. The Labour Party were elected on a big majority, and they did get the majority of votes.
On
And this was a
34%. No, they didn't.
was
They got 34% of
well,
the vote.
this was a flagship policy, wasn't it, of theirs? And they undoubtedly, and I guess it's how democracies run, isn't it? They had it as a policy, and they're implementing it now. And I guess it's we could get into a lot of philosophical debates about the nature of freedom in a democracy, but this has been they had a kind of mandate to do this within the
No,
current system
I don't
we have.
deny. I don't deny that they have. They do have a mandate to do it. You're absolutely right under our system. However, back at the beginning of the year, I can remember doing phone-ins on this subject, and many people would call in and say, "Well, look, we won't be able to afford to do this, so our children will need to go back into the state system." And people on your side of the argument would come onto the radio and say, "Oh, that'll be just a very small number. It won't have much impact at all." And yet here we have Surrey County Council saying that they won't be able to take any more people from the private education system in September because they've run out of spaces. Now, if the Department of Education is going to have to then pay for extra school spaces, it completely negates the idea that this would raise, what was it, £1.5 billion or something to fill the 22 billion black hole. That was the justification for it that Labour were putting forward.
I guess we're looking at the big picture here, and to be honest, though, I mean, I think overall, looking at the kind of government statistics about this, we do have falling roles in a lot of our schools, particularly primary schools, and so this may readdress a balance there. Obviously, with a policy like this, there's going to be kind of teething issues which may happen, but I think overall it's going to be a fairly small percentage of pupils affected by this. And actually, many of the private schools are adjusting things and they may not even be putting up fees because it affects the ways in which they pay for their premises because they will cease to become charities. So, for example, as you were talking about with the special school, if the children are sent by the local authority to that special school, the local authority won't be paying VAT on those children's fees. So, I guess, any kind of policy like this does have kind of teething issues,
yeah.
but overall, I would say this is for the greater good, because we're going to have more, children from wealthier backgrounds going into schools. We're going to have less social segregation, and we're going to have better funding ultimately for state schools because of this.
I think what you say about teething problems is really important, because whenever there's a change, it doesn't matter whether it's in the health service or education or society more generally, there will always be teething problems. But that's why I think a lot of people wonder why the rush on this? Why implement it for the next term that starts in January? Why not wait till the beginning of the next academic year? And it would have given schools like Michelle's time to prepare, time to fund extra bursaries.
I think that's about the political process. I mean, I think it's well known, Ian, isn't it, that, if a government is going to do something within their term, 5 years term, they have to move pretty quickly, particularly with education. We saw that with Gove and Gibb in 2010. They moved very quickly to change a lot of different things in order to get it implemented. And I think they really did feel this was a popular policy overall within the country, and they're going to, it's fairly straightforward, and they're going to implement it quite quickly. I think there's always going to be kind of issues faced with it because of the nature of the structural change that was happening, and they felt like, let's get this over with quickly, and it is a popular policy, and let's get it implemented. I think the local authorities have had quite a while since July to kind of process this, and they are taking steps to do so, and so is the Department for Education. So I think basically, there has been enough time to get this done. And schools are going to have to adjust as best they can to it within the context, the political context.
Francis, thank you very much. That's Francis Gilbert, Senior Lecturer in Education at Goldsmiths. Looking forward to